talk about the realities and everyone's experiences with hotel investments and developments over the past year. This is going to be a little bit of a roller coaster session. We're going to be very honest about the current environment, which hasn't been easy, but we're also going to talk about some happy and exciting things that are coming up. So we're going to give you a little bit of both here. So we're going to show you some slides with data because I love data. And then this esteemed panel that has a very diverse background is going to give a lot of experiences. But most of all, it's a really fun panel. So I hope you enjoy. So let's get to know everybody. We're going to just go down the line, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do in your company. And then for fun, because we're all hotel people, I want you to say, what is one of your favorite room design details that you appreciate, like in a hotel room that maybe not everyone would notice, but we're hotel people, so we appreciate it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiffany Cooper. I'm the Chief Development Officer for Aimbridge Hospitality, which is, 15 minutes right down the road from here. Aimbridge is the largest third-party operator in the world. We have roughly about 1,500 hotels, about 1,200 which are here in the US, and we are continuing our growth, and I'm thrilled to be here with everyone.
Wait, what's your favorite hotel?
Oh, my favorite. Yes, actually, this morning, I took a shower, and did everyone notice the little bar at the bottom? So us ladies, so when we shave, we don't have to kill ourselves trying to balance and shave at the same time. There's a nice little foot ledge where we can rest our foot and shave our legs. So there you go.
Thought it was a towel rack. My name's Dupree, Scovell. I'm from here in Dallas with a company called Woodbine. I'm also the president of the Tiffany Cooper fan club. So glad to be a part of that. You guys can join. It's free. So we're a hotel development company based here in Texas and do everything from select service all the way up to full service. Every brand and independent. So Hyatt, Hilton, Marriott. Started with Hyatt and then have kind of grown that over time. So glad to be here today. Favorite, which I actually don't see this very often, but we just put it in one of our hotels. Light switches. I cannot stand like the older light switches, and I don't like the punch the button and the light goes down because then you're like, so I like the I forget who makes them. You guys would probably know.
It's LeGrand.
The ones that have their brass and they like click. And it's a little knob. It's a beautiful little thing, and it's a great detail. So I don't know. That's what I like right now.
Right now. Stephen Medel with Pacifica Hotels. We are a Southern California-based hotel ownership and management company. Not a lot of developments. Funny, they put the two owners in the middle, I think, so that they can bookend us with a little more happiness and
that's
glee. We've got about 40 hotels in the portfolio. We're a 53-year-old company. The vast majority of our hotels are based in California. We're very much a West Coast-centric company, but growing, and that doesn't mean that we haven't had hotels throughout the country. We've had hotels in upstate New York, in Florida. We have a couple of assets in Hawaii. Recently grew into the Pacific Northwest with a hotel in Portland and a hotel in Seattle. I'm the Vice President of Business Development, which is just a fancy title for myself and a great team who really grow through acquisitions, both on the purchase side as well as on the third-party management side. We do a little bit of development. It's not something that we put out on the street. It really just depends on the location and where the hotel is. My favorite thing, and it's so funny, we're all talking about, it was bathrooms, but I have a wife, and so anytime I go into a hotel bathroom, I'm always conscious of lighting and counter space. So anytime a bathroom has enough counter space for not only all of my stuff, but my wife's stuff, I'm always appreciative of that.
Who has more stuff?
I have more stuff.
I just want to put that out there.
Absolutely have more stuff.
Well, I like to say that the Dyson blow dryer that I got her was for her. It was really for me.
That's okay.
Your hair looks very
The
nice.
hair is on point. So.
There we go. Nice job.
Glauser, Benz, Dream Hotel Group, where we were an independent lifestyle boutique brand based out of New York for the last 25 years, recently acquired by Hyatt Corporation. We are present in the gateway markets, New York, LA, Nashville, Miami, Phuket, Bangkok. Currently have about 5 projects in construction for over $1.5 billion in Vegas, Miami, Doha, St. Lucia, Turks and Caicos, and in Mexico. We got another 15 to 20 under development across multiple markets in the US, Latin America, Caribbean, and also in Europe. Favorite aspect in a room in general, good water pressure in the shower, comfortable mattress, good linen quality.
That was 3 things.
All staples.
You already know who's going to be trouble over here.
Let me start by introducing myself. I'm Emmy Hise. I am the Senior Director of Hospitality Analytics for CoStar. CoStar is a commercial real estate platform that has information, data, and news. And my favorite thing, they actually brought it up on the first panel today about how light switches aren't always in the same place anymore. And I recently stayed at a hotel. I'm an early riser, and I put my feet down, and it like had soft lighting under the bed, and so I didn't hit my shin on like the side of the bed or knock off like the clock trying to find the light switch. So I really appreciated that amenity.
It's nice.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to get started talking about some slides and data to get us kicked off here. So, oh good, here's my slide. So first we're going to talk about hotel investments, and this slide really highlights the 2 big trends in the hospitality industry. One is hotel performance is strong. So you see this with this dark blue line on here. This is the trailing 12-month room revenue, and as of August, it was at an all-time high. So you can see it had a pretty steep increase. Now it's starting to flatline a little bit with still a little bit of growth, but I will get into the whys of that in a couple minutes. Next, we have the green bars on here, which is showing us hotel investment sales volume. There's a very robust 2022 for hotel transactions taking place, and then it has taken a deep dive. So one might be asking, if hotels are performing so well, why are there not more hotel transactions? And the very easy, basic answer, which there's a lot of variables, is hotel fundamentals are strong, remain strong, and this is more of a capital markets issue. So with the interest rates getting higher and higher, the cost of debt is obviously higher too, and so it's making it a little bit more difficult for deals to pencil. There's a lot more to it that I'm sure everyone on this panel will get into, but there it is. Now, because of higher debt costs, banks are not financing as much, and so what we're seeing this year, the smaller transaction hotels are the ones that are trading. So that's been a shift of transaction activities. So year to date, 71% of the hotel sales volume were for hotels deals under $100 million. Last year, during the same period, it was 54%. So it's really shifted towards these smaller deals transacting. Now, in this greater than $200 million bucket, you'll see that that has significantly fallen off down to 15% 2023 year to date. Now, keep in mind, 2022 was kind of an outlier year for the $200 million and above. There were a lot of casino deals in the billions, and then the Watermark portfolio trading, that really boosted it up. But still, even if you're looking at that historical data, excluding 2022, we've seen it fall off. So now getting to a little bit more of the whys, and again, on this panel, people will talk about it. First, I'm going to talk about headwinds. I have a general rule. I like to hear bad news first, and then I want someone to give me a hug and tell me something nice and good, so I'm going to finish with tailwinds after this.
I'll give you a hug too.
Oh, thank you. So to get started, I already mentioned it, with the interest rates, they're higher, and that's impacting transaction volume, but it's also impacting consumers. So the savings are getting lower for the population, and credit card debt is getting higher. Not only is credit card debt getting higher, but at a higher interest rate, which could be impacting travel decisions. Now that jumps to the normalization of travel. So what we mean by that is we're starting to see leisure visitors revert back to their normal travel periods. If any of you have heard the term revenge travel, at least domestically, it's over. So there's the interest rates I talked about, higher cost of living, student loan debts are now, or payments are now being resumed. So people are being more mindful of their budgets. But on the positive side, people are prioritizing travel in their budgets. It's just starting to look different. They might switch destination, switch hotel type for what works for their dollar, or they might still pay the same amount, but instead of taking 3 vacations, they're taking 1. Now, the other headwind is insurance costs, especially in hurricane locations and places with wildfire. I've heard recently they've called it double, half, double the price, double the deductible, half the coverage. And so that's also impacting transaction activity because it's messing with the net operating income and therefore the hotel valuation. Now for the warm hug. Let's get to that. So one of the reasons some of the sales transactions, like I mentioned, weren't happening as much was the higher interest rates and the uncertainty around them. Now more people are feeling more certain about where the Fed rates are going to land, and I think most people will see what you guys say, have the consensus that they think about one more Fed rate will happen, and then now the question is how long will it hold, when will it start to drop? So I talked about the high costs of living, but right now there's really low unemployment and there's a high amount of open jobs, meaning people have access to jobs and money and spending, hopefully towards travel. So that is a positive headwind, and that's why we're saying travel budget stays in the budgets. Next, specific to tourism, I told you leisure is starting to soften, normalize a little bit, but there's still a lot of runway. Outbound international demand has fully recovered to 2019 levels. Inbound has not. So when we get that inbound international travel back, that's going to be a huge boost, as well as group and conventions. It's really been having a ton of growth, and it's not quite back to where it was. It's pretty close, and that's without citywides. So there's a lot of room of runway for hotels in the hotel space. Now, I have done a lot of talking, so we can go back to the different screens so we don't have to look at the bad news, good news. So here's my question for you all now that I just talked a lot. If you were to use one word in your experience to describe the current climate for hotel transactions, what would it be? And if it's a tough word, I'm going to ask for a definition.
And curse words aren't allowed.
Yeah, that's right.
Curse words are not.
I mean, this seems like a safe space.
I think my word is meh. If that's a word, can I say meh?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's just meh.
Okay.
I would quote the ancient philosopher Charles Barkley. I would say terrible.
There you go.
Terrible.
Mine sounds a lot like his, and it's turbulent.
Okay.
Lots of challenges, but also some opportunities there.
Okay. Now, looking forward to 2024, would your word change for hotel transactions?
I think we have to make a distinction between the first half of the year and the second half of the year. If I brought my magic 8-ball, I'm thinking that it's probably going to be more the same for the next few quarters. But I'm hoping, because I don't think we'd be on this stage and we wouldn't be in development if we weren't optimists. I think we'll start to see a turn. I mean, at some point, things have to start to turn. So I think it's going to Q2, Q3, it'll start kind of moving. And so I will say that I'm optimistic.
Like it.
I'll counterbalance that. I'll say terrible-er.
Oh,
Terrible-er
for the whole year?
for the whole year.
Ooh, okay. All right.
I think markets have a lot to do with it, and I say markets, I mean like geographically. We find ourselves with, we were in that revenge travel space, and so we were in an area of the country where we were extremely fortunate to be able to bring our team members back, have hotels that were open during almost all of it, having record numbers, while hearing from my counterparts on other parts of the country saying, Stephen, we still have hotels that are closed. I'm like, God, how naive am I to think that everything is all hunky-dory in, March of 2021 or even March of 2022. So I tend to be more of a glass half full type of person.
I am normally, to be honest.
I'm equally optimistic, but know that we also see a lot of opportunity next year. So I'm an opportunist.
When does it come? Does it come Q1, Q3?
We anticipate, and again, we don't have a crystal ball either, but we anticipate between now and probably the end of Q1 of next year, you're going to start to see we think, some great opportunities. Now, they're at the expense of other people. So in our world, we will continue to be opportunistic.
Yeah, we still see a lot of that $6 trillion of liquidity slushing in the market, and that will keep demand for rooms high, but it also will keep those rates high for another year at least. So 25, if we make it to 25, we'll be fine, but I think that's going to take a long time until markets reverse. So mid-25.
Mid-25. Okay.
Stay live till 25. Did we coin that?
I just heard that the other day. Yeah, stay alive till 25. So, Stephen, you kind of mentioned this in your intro, but you had some recent transactions in the Pacific Northwest. Can you talk about what drew you to the area? How were the deals structured?
Speaking of opportunistic, so we went to a part of the country where a lot of people were leaving, and even people in their own state are saying, you know, Portland, give that to California. So we closed on a couple of hotels, and again, these were purely opportunistic. These were parts of the country where our company namesake Pacifica, yet we had no hotels going up the Pacific Northwest. And so we saw an opportunity in Portland, Oregon. It was a hotel with an extremely great track record, and even in the current dynamics of the market was doing quite well against its comp set. So we acquired the vintage Portland from a national REIT. At an extremely great basis. So for us, and so we did two deals. So we bought the Portland vintage, and then we 8 months later closed on the Seattle vintage, which Seattle in broad strokes is doing way better than Portland. But we did both of them on the same kind of investment thesis, and that is, it was an opportunity to get into these markets at an extremely attractive basis. We are also able to mitigate against a lot of risk for us, and so we acquired these hotels. Portland, we acquired at $270,000 a key. Seattle, we acquired at $260,000 a key. We are extremely low levered. All of our loans are non-recourse. We have 2 to 3 years of interest reserve on both of those deals. So from an economic standpoint, for us, it allows us to be patient. Patience is the name of the game. And if you're coming into any deal in this country, I think, and you don't have enough liquidity, you got to ask yourself, why am I doing this deal? If you don't believe in the fundamentals, you probably shouldn't be in the industry anyway right now if you're actively buying or developing. And we just believe in these two markets. And so having those assurances behind us really gave us the confidence that we can go and execute our game plan. Interestingly enough, so we did the deals with Tiffany and Tiffany's just previous life, that they were with Kimpton. And the Kimpton team is up there managing those hotels for us today, which provided us just further helped mitigate some of that risk by leaving them under Kimpton's management up there.
Thanks.
So that brings us into the Pacific Northwest.
All right. Welcome. That's part of my territory, so
Okay.
I had fun reading about it. So Dupree, what is your opinion of the future federal rate hikes, and what has the impact of rate hikes been on hotel lending? And you can even tie this into if you've had recent transactions that you want to chat about.
Sure. So, I mean, our view generally is that rates will be higher longer. I think much to the detriment of the global economy, but I think that's the decision that the Fed's going to make, or has already made. And so, I think that's going to create potentially a global recession. But I think for hotels, we look at it as, I mean, we are in a recession. We have been in a recession for at least a year. So it doesn't change a lot of what we do. It has been a lot of survival tactics. And so I think our assumption is the Fed keeps those up at least for a year, and doesn't really start to drop until at the earliest Q4 24, if not first part of 25. So what does that do? That makes transaction activity very muted, as we'll see. And I think we're down. I think it's like 60% off, right? The global, I guess even U.S. transaction volume is off that much. And so I don't think that's not going to be a temporary thing. I think that's something we're going to see for a while. There are going to be certain opportunities that come up that are going to be, very nuanced in nature, and I think it's going to be a lot of bridge capital that's coming in, helping people get from kind of a high interest rate environment and a PIP that is long overdue and performance that has been lagging into kind of the next phase. But that's going to be really expensive. And so the debt that we've seen, not surprisingly, has been from kind of two ends of the spectrum. Either the big global banks that we have tenured relationships with, 30, 40, 50 years with groups like Wells Fargo. On the other end of that spectrum, it's groups that we've really spent a lot of time with, which is a lot of the regional and local lenders. The rate environment is generally in that 7 to 8 to 9% range. There's not much movement there. And a lot of the deals that you're seeing getting done are those where there's existing debt that you can assume and maintain the lower rate that was set several years ago. So I think it's good. But so usually a recession is created by an absence of or a lack of liquidity. In this case, there's not a lack of liquidity. There's just really expensive liquidity. And that creates a whole nother dynamic that doesn't necessarily lead to a ton of blood in the water, if you will, but leads to a lot of long, hard, operational, challenging times. And so I think that's probably what we're looking at when we think about what's coming.
Thank you.
That's not quite the hug you were
Yeah, I was going to
wanting.
say like.
Oh, I know.
Side
Okay,
hug.
so how about this for a hug? Tiffany, in the pre-call, you talked about how this cycle might be different or the same as other cycles, and I feel like that was a good perspective, if you want to share.
Well, this is also before a war was announced in the Middle East. The geopolitical climate is arguably much more intense now than it was. We have Ukraine and Russia. We have just all of those macro issues to contend with. We didn't really have that in 2008. We didn't have the pandemic. We didn't have supply chain, interest rates. You just had this, this bubble and this housing crisis that made everything collapse. I think my point, though, that I was making in terms of 2008 vis-a-vis now is that oftentimes when you're in, a recession, I agree with you. I think we're definitely in a recession. I think it's an interest rate recession, but I would agree we're also in a recession. But when you're in it, it feels like forever, right? It just feels like it's going on forever. And we've really only been in this period for about a year. It really slowed down last September. 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, it went on for 4 solid years probably of just trying to hustle and find deals and this weird thing popped up called EB-5, and I'd never heard of it before, but we all got very smart about EB-5 and this visa program that people could buy into real estate. So I guess what I've learned in all my wise years of development, and also the early 2000s as well, is that and we learn this in economics, there are peaks and there are troughs, right? So we're in a trough right now, but we also know that what goes down goes up and goes down, and it's one of those cycles. So I, being the optimist, knows that we will eventually get through all of these. When you add it all up, there is a lot right now. But there's going to be some tipping point, whether it's the Fed, resisting to continue to raise and hopefully maybe start to lower, inflation, the jobs report's still good, so there are some, positive attributes. Room rates are still good. People are still traveling. There haven't been any, debt bubbles that have popped. Hopefully they won't. So I think that as long as we can kind of hang on and live another day, and that's what, Dupree, that's really what you and your family of, your dad,
that's the whole idea.
So many years of development.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's just hanging on and trying to be really creative, getting really smart, learning other aspects to be able to kind of hone your business and hone your skills, and also cut costs. I think during COVID, on the operations side and the brand side, we just tried to get a lot more leaner. and there's been a lot of good best practices that came out. You don't want to waste a good crisis, right? So I think there's a lot of good learnings that came out and consolidations where owners and operators were able to control costs a little bit better. So this too shall pass. There's your hug.
Thank you. I needed that. So you all have been very nice in saying there might be potential opportunities. Others who aren't maybe as nice might say distressed deals. So I'm going to be nice. I'm learning from you guys. Thank you. This is to everyone. What do you think are the opportunities of the situation? And I'm going to start with Christian. I'm not trying to ignore you. You have a lot to cover on development, but everyone wants to hear from you too.
It's just kind of like the low-hanging fruit, right? For us, is rebranding, and assets that are already built require less capital to turn around. And we see plenty of that in Texas, in Florida, so we're going after that. That's easy. We have a couple assets in construction that actually just got financed in Miami. It's our flagships, $250 million. And I tell you, to get a loan for $120 million wasn't that easy in this market, but we got it, and we're starting construction. And I think as a brand now, through Hyatt, we're able to tap on some of the benefits that we could bring to the table for ownership in terms of mezzanine and loan guarantees and completion guarantees to soften sort of the cost of the debt. But it's not impossible. You got to be very creative. Existing assets is what we're working on right now a lot in multiple markets in Canada, US, and Mexico. And it's just a quicker turnaround and less capital intensive. So no, you adapt. You adapt just like what you did with COVID, with cost and operational costs. We're learning, and I think we're going to use this for the next 12 months while things start to decontract a little bit.
Anyone else want to take that one or answer it? And that's okay if it's no. Christian
On
did
the
a great
distress
job.
side?
Opportunities or distressed, however you want to look at it. What's your outlook for that?
So I think many of us, when COVID hit, we were all waiting for the great distress, right? We were all getting ready, like we are going to be so busy looking at assets and looking at conversion opportunities and buying hotels pennies on the dollar, and that never happened. We were, in 2009, that definitely happened. There were some really great value add opportunities. So Aimbridge Hospitality a few years ago purchased Prism Hotels, and they are prolific within the distress and receivership business. So it's one of those, we have great experience on our side in terms of how we interact with the distressed market and special servicers. There's, I think, $80 billion worth of debt that's coming due, loan maturities, CMBS, within the next 18 months. Mm-hmm. And that's going to have to be sorted out. So, refinances, which are very expensive right now. Brands were super patient during COVID, allowing owners to, push their property scopes and improvement plans a few years down the line, with average rates just incrementally rising and all of this travel, pent-up demand travel, revenge travel. Now the brands are like, okay, it's time to get these properties renovated. So do you have the funds to do it? And if you have a loan that's coming due, are you going to just throw the keys back, or can you get it refinanced? All of those. So when we talk about opportunity, Stephen, you were talking about this. I think we're going to see. Even if just a quarter of that, a portion of that comes due, I think we're going to be pretty busy.
We're starting to see lenders get back to work. And for the last 3 years, so much has been put on hold, whether it was the brand, whether it was lenders, whether there was this whole pretend and extend, and you can apply whatever metaphor. Everything got pushed. There was fake money out in the marketplace. There was, and we benefited from it. So I'm not saying anything bad about it, but we see a huge amount of opportunity in these next 6 to 12 months. And for us, 3 to 4 deals a year, and we're happy. So it's not about doing huge multiples or taking down large portfolios, but we have the ability to be opportunistic in the event that we see a smaller size portfolio become available. We could do that. Having the ability to do deals with all cash, that's hugely beneficial right now. We also happen to have a great relationship lender behind us who allows us and helps us to put money out there, and that's extremely helpful for us. But we've seen clients who have had hotels go back. We would have loved to have been that exit for them, but at their basis, that wasn't going to work. So we think there's going to be a lot of distress. We think it's going to look different though. And I don't know how much of that gets heavily discounted. I think what it's going to do is it's going to put pressure on sellers who are of a certain age or a certain generation and maybe say, listen, it's time. It's time for me to sell my hotel. I never would have sold this. We had a hotel in the middle of COVID, the Georgian Hotel in Santa Monica, which we were managing. Thought they were never, ever, ever going to sell it. We were managing it, and a group approached them, hit the number, and they said, Steven, we're selling the hotel. We're like, oh my God. One of the most iconic hotels right there on Ocean Avenue in Santa Monica. But things like that happen when people look at their typical cash flows and say, what's going to happen? I'm going to be forced to do a refinance. In this environment, heck no, I'm going to sell. Those are kind of some of the opportunities. They're not all distressed, but they're sales that happen on the tail of an event. And I think we're going to be there to scoop up a couple of those for sure.
I think it's a great point, and I agree with you. I mean, I think you kind of think about the timeline of what folks have gone through. 2 years of a pandemic, right? You're kind of weathering that storm. You're doing all the work out with the lender. Most likely, unless you just finished a renovation, the chickens are coming home to roost on that side. You've got things you need to fix. You've got interest rates that have now tripled, much harder to hire. You got all these factors that make it really hard to own and operate a hotel. And I think that guy is going, this is just, at some point they go, this just isn't worth it. Now at the same time, the other side of that, you've got a lender who's going, well, I don't want it. It's like the last thing I want to do is do what you just had to go through. Mm-hmm. And so there's not more of an appetite for a lender to say, I am going to foreclose, because the value is not necessarily there for them. And so those two forces make for an interesting environment where I do think there's either bridge capital or a scenario where you have partners that are saying, hey, I want out, and the other partner's saying, I want to stay in. Mm-hmm. That's where I think there's unique opportunities to be able to create liquidity and get control. Or in our case, right, it's always important in these types of environments, we know our assets better than anyone else. And so we're going to look at those opportunities just like you would. A REIT would say, hey, let's go buy our own stock. We'd say this is the time to go be able to create liquidity for those partners who do want an exit, and then we own more of our assets. So those types of nuanced transactions, I think, are the ones that we're going to see. Just like Steven said, it's not going to be what we've expected, where all of a sudden there's just thousands of hotels that lenders own that they're just wanting to get out. I don't think that happens. I think it's going to be much more nuanced, much more discreet.
We're even looking at doing like white knight capital things, and Dupree and our CEO are pretty close. I mean, you're doing deals with relationship people. You're not just coming in and saying, we're the pref equity guys. And how many pref equity deals actually got done in the last 3 years? Everybody was out there looking, but very, very few deals got done. And it was because it kind of came from more of a predatory position, I think. Whereas with us, we'd say, hey, if we've got relationships out there and somebody's looking for some fresh powder capital to come in and take out an older investor who maybe has a slightly different disposition to the type of risk that we're going into, we're there to step up to do that. But yeah.
There's also something interesting we've seen primarily in leisure markets like Florida, in Miami, and Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, is the luxury condo market is on fire, especially the high-end $5+ million a condo. Those projects with Ritz-Carlton brands and hotels inside, they are getting built and they're getting financed quickly. So on the top end of the brand side, if you're building a high-end luxury hotel with branded residences that can be part of a rental pool, like a traditional condo hotel, that product's moving. And if you go to places like Naples, Florida, Palm Beach or Miami, I mean, we have dozens of these projects moving along right now. So it's people who don't need a loan to buy their $10 million condo. There's a lot of them coming from New York to Florida. That gets projects built. So it's much more liquid than just doing a freestanding hotel that requires, the traditional lending structure. So, but that's very specific to certain markets. There are tax exile markets like Texas and Florida and places in Puerto Rico as well, especially.
Well, Christian, you just gave me a perfect segue to switch gears to development, so thank you for that. That helped me with my job up here, so thank you. I'm going to talk quickly just about the under construction pipeline. So if you don't mind showing up the slides again, that would be great. So these are the total rooms under construction in the US. The green bars are showing you the number of rooms under construction, and then the line is showing you the year-over-year change. So for the past 6 to 9 months, the under construction rooms has basically been flat. But in August, for the first time, we saw the year-over-year under construction rooms fall. It's a lot tougher to get construction financing, with the exception of what Christian just talked about. There are those deals that do work out when there's multiple elements. And so as a result, as the new hotels are opening, new hotel construction projects aren't starting. That's why we're starting to see the fall. But here's the warm hug. Even though it's down year over year, if you look at the final planning, that's up 40%. So we define final planning as a hotel project starting construction within the next 12 months. I think it might be longer than 12 months in our definition. We might need to adjust that, but but still the whole point is developers still want to build hotels. They're excited about the hotel industry. They like it, they're interested. I've talked to different groups that say, all right, we have everything set up. We know the project we want. We're just waiting for a more favorable environment, and then it's green light, go. And so but they're doing the prep work for it still. Now, in terms of where, Nashville continues to be at the top of the list for hotel development. This is the full spectrum in construction, final planning, and this chart is showing the percentage of hotel inventory increase. So not the number, but like how much they're adding. Phoenix, Dallas, and Denver moved to the top of the list. If we were just looking at rooms under construction, it would be Nashville, New York, and Austin as the top locations. So now we can go back to our beautiful faces on the screen, and you get them real time as well. You can tell all of us afterwards if we need to update our business professional photos. But my question for you is the same as how we started the hotel investment. If you could describe hotel development in one word right now, what would it be?
Anemic.
Better than me.
Shoot, I don't have one. I think whatever word would describe, developers are going to develop. Yeah. That's what we do. And damn the torpedoes. That's my phrase. That's what I would say. Like, that's just what
I always talk about. Has everyone seen Jurassic Park? Remember the part when they're looking at the dinosaurs and they're, wow, this is amazing. And so how are you going to prevent them from procreating? And they say, well, they're all women. And I think it was Jeff Goldblum, he looks up and he's like, yeah, nature will find a way. I say that because it's like developers. Developers will find a way.
So developers are dinosaurs? Is that what we're...
I do understand the point. We got there, but I get it. You're right.
It is
true. One way or other, we'll get it done.
You will figure it out. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter. Chromosomes aside.
Developers are a special breed.
Indeed.
More like velociraptors, right?
Maybe more, yeah. Like they hunt in packs. How did we get on this Jurassic? Thank you for the Jurassic Park reference. You're going to start hearing accents come out. But they're like Lazarus. They just take a hit and keep going. And that's probably the reason why there will always be new development in every facet of commercial real estate. Is when you have developers out there, and whether it's the fee or it's just like the drive to do one more project, wherever that might be. There's always the next deal. You know, I don't know that I have a word for it, but they've got thick skin, that's for sure. I don't know that we have that.
Okay.
It also cleanses the system. These recessions get rid of all the extra fat, the inefficiencies, and optimizes those groups that stay in business and have the backbone to carry on for like Dupree's family and some of these legacy groups. So there's a good thing about it. And it sounds terrible, but I think that also cleans up the system.
So we're going to get to some detailed projects, but talk broadly. I want each of you to give a quick overview of what is your current development pipeline like? Is it like the stats I just showed, or, you know, is it green light go? I'm curious on a broad level where each of you are at, and then we'll get into some more of the specific developments.
Start with Christian. You can start at the end.
Yes.
So we've been busy in spite of all these challenges and headwinds. I think, again, being very, very careful with where you want to go in terms of markets, where the money's moving, the people are migrating. COVID kind of started probably one of the largest migrations in the last 50 years to the Sun Belt and to the South. So there is demand there, and there's demand for everything. And hotels is one of these components. So that's where we're positioning ourselves. There's a ton of rebranding. We're looking at multiple secondary markets. We are rejoicing in secondary markets, both in Texas and in Florida. I live in Miami, so it's an easy thing for me to look in the backyard. But we've got Tampa, we've got Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, Naples. We're looking at a beautiful property in Fort Lauderdale with luxury condos as well. So that plays out well because of the dynamics of the lending market. But also places like St. Petersburg. So these leisure markets that offer a quality of lifestyle, non-tax sort of situation. Companies are moving there. They're moving their employees. They're moving entire, hundreds and thousands of employees down there. So I'm sure Dupree has a similar story here with Dallas and the booming in the city of Dallas. But there are these bright spots, and I think it's a combination of things. Are you a place that's welcoming investment and is welcoming jobs? That all sets the mood for projects to become much more feasible. And south of the border is very interesting because Mexico has lower rates than in the US. And so dynamics are a little bit different. They're not great, but they're better than here. And so we're seeing much more movement in markets like Colombia, Chile, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Turks and Caicos. We have a property in construction there. St. Lucia, also booming market. We have a property in construction there. So there are these spots where I'm not even going to look at the Middle East or Asia, but there are a lot of spots in the map where there is a lot of opportunity. And I think gateway markets like San Francisco, New York, New York just passed a law that basically blocks Airbnb. So if you have a hotel in New York right now, you basically have no more Airbnb competition. That was the largest Airbnb market in the world after Paris. So these things are going to have a huge impact on rate for New York hotel owners. And there hasn't been a lot of new supply in New York, not to take into consideration that they lost 10% of the supply during COVID. So the compression in New York is going to be phenomenal. I think hotels in New York are going to do very well for the next 5-10 years. So there are certain dynamics that come, and when they come, you really have to take advantage of them.
We can go this way?
Yep.
Okay. So we're not really developers, so I'll kind of categorize it into a couple different things or a couple different areas. So within our own portfolio, we typically buy existing hotels, but we might do significant renovation on those properties. And so the first that will likely see a huge renovation will be our property we recently acquired in Seattle, just because it's prime. It's in a prime location, in need of a renovation to really capitalize on this kind of dynamic coming back into Seattle, as we're seeing it with jobs coming back, Amazon reopening, and things like that. We're we're seeing huge lift in Seattle. And to time that with the waterfront reopening, which takes place next year, the convention center just opened, the timing seems right to do that right now. Now, on our in the third-party space, we have a couple of developers where we're purely the operator, but we're bringing a couple of projects out of the ground. One happens to be a Marriott-branded Tribute in Santa Barbara, California. It's a piece of dirt that we acquired the land, entitled it. We almost never do it, but it was in our own backyard, and so we did it. And so that developer will be bringing that project out of the ground. He's just actually finalizing construction loans. Do not ask me what the interest rate is. There's another project, also a Marriott Tribute, taking place in San Pedro, California, which, if you're not familiar with San Pedro, is LA County. It's really like one of the last undeveloped, and I say that in the nicest of ways. It's like one of the last areas in LA County that's on the coast that hasn't yet seen, and on the water, that hasn't yet seen the boom that everything else in LA County has seen. And our client has owned this piece of land for a long, long time. But the delays on both of these projects are significant, and it has everything to do with interest rates and rising costs of construction, where you see almost San Pedro is almost a 2x increase, a 2x on construction cost, and Santa Barbara is certainly 25% increase on construction costs.
Thinking about that chart that you showed, generally what we've done, I mean, when you see in planning means the developer has no choice but to keep planning. Or they're just stubborn, or both. But in our case, right, if you started planning a project and you're into CDs, whether you're 10% or you're 70%, you're too committed. Mm-hmm. You got to finish, because otherwise the plans become obsolete. It's hard to get a team remobilized. So I think in a lot of cases we've said, well, for the projects that make sense, we'll go to 100% CDs and we'll sit until the financing environment makes more sense, kind of like what you mentioned. But from a development perspective, this is where, as much as grim as I might think the world is, I mean, that's just kind of how we've made our living. And so we're going to keep developing. So 4 projects within a mile from here, a dual branded hotel across the street, and then 2 separate hotels less than a mile. 1 in Alabama, an Embassy Suites, 1 in Gulf Shores, 1 in Fort Walton Beach, that's a Residence Inn. There's 6 projects that are going to be, in some form of construction in the next 6 months. On the other side of that is this extended stay platform that actually Dan Hansen, who I saw, who was here, is kind of the author of this category with the brands, to be honest, and has created Hyatt Studios. Home 3 is what Hilton has, then Marriott has their version of it as well. Those 3 brands launching at the same time, really in that kind of AmeriSuites category, is something that we've been really active in. So we have, I think, 9 sites there that are going to be moving forward in some sort of planning. And the way you get those done is you do it without debt. And so our capital is really going behind those, all equity. And actually we'll begin construction, all equity on 3 of those projects. And so those are the types of things where it is. It's kind of those things where you can make the case for development in a great environment. You can make the case for a development in a really bad environment. And I think in our case, our sales pitch may change a little bit here and there, but it gives us the opportunity to go, okay, well, this is why we're going to do it now. At the end of the day, for us, we feel like a new build project is going to be able to compete against projects that haven't been renovated. And when we're thinking about the extended stay platform and we want to put together a portfolio at scale, you got to do that when other people can't do it. And that's the moment in time, that's the window we have to try and take advantage of that, to say that's the reason for us to move forward now. So at the end of the day, we're just going to keep developing.
Because they're female dinosaurs.
Thank you.
That's right.
No, but thankful for that, right? Aimbridge, we're a third-party operator, so we work with developers like Dupree and operate those hotels. I think we're really trying to. I'm glad Christian mentioned Latin America, because we also we acquired a third-party management company called Prisma down in Mexico, and so we're really working on growing our LatAm footprint, and there are tremendous opportunities. I think when you're looking at a cost for construction on especially a full service or lifestyle hotel, which is super hot, in Texas, it's like $450 a key. I mean, it's, years ago you could, that would be, California, and so everyone would, come to Texas or go to Florida. But now, if you don't have some kind of mixed use component, if you don't have a residential component that helps subsidize the project, I don't even know how you can get that done. So then you look at kind of the smaller checkbooks deals, which are like the Hyatt Studios, right? So Dan, Hansen, wherever you are, it's a great time to launch that brand. I think Hyatt will be incredibly successful with that product type because you can still get those deals done. I do think that because of what's happened with Silicon Valley Bank and this kind of mini bank crisis, these smaller deals, it's harder to get those financed now because the regional banks, a lot of things are frozen right now. So I think that'll hopefully start to move. But there's just, what I was hoping to hear, and you didn't mention this, but I was hoping to hear that construction costs at least are going to come down.
I think that's the
bit,
case.
right?
I think we're starting to see that. I mean, that's like right now, the real time, first time in years.
Yeah.
That I think we're right at that point where the next 12 months, I think it starts to come down.
Supply and demand, and I think a lot of hotels shut down because of COVID, and they just changed use. So you'll have maybe a dearth of new construction projects over 2 to 3 year periods. So if you can develop now, you're able to hopefully potentially own the upside. Before I left Kimpton a few months ago, I was able to get a deal across the line on the Monterey coast. And so there are it comes down to the right project and the right location. That was a deal actually that was ready to go last August and died with that developer because interest rates started rising, and we were able to bring in another developer and find a different group and get it done. But those are very specific deals, super specific. So I think we have to kind of wait it out a little bit.
So I wanted to have you guys share some of your development deals. We only have a little bit of time left. We never get through everything we want to get through. Can we put the slides back up, please? I'm going to start with Christian because you have some cool local deals with the Dream brand. Do you want to chat about it, give us some details? And those who might not be as familiar with what the Dream brand is about, could you talk about the brand a little bit?
Of course. So really very, very highly focused into food and beverage activations, high energy venues, entertainment, nightlife. This marriage with Hyatt is incredible for both of us. I think Hyatt brings an incredible global platform of reservation and their loyalty program that's one of the best, high tier kind of guest. And the Dream brand and Dream team bring that sort of more curated approach to spaces. Everything's bespoke. Everything is done all the way down to the fonts of the menu. So these are a couple example projects that we're working on right now. They're currently in construction. Well, Dream Miami started construction last week, actually, after almost 4 years of work during COVID and this rate environment, but that's $250 million project just to the backdrop of downtown Miami in Brickell. It's going to be the first hotel probably in the US who has a VIP check-in from your yacht. So you come in through the Caribbean, pull into our waterfront. It's about 600 feet of waterfront. It's the largest waterfront property in Miami. It's 2 lots that were assembled, very narrow lots. On the long side, half of the lot is actually owned by the city. So it was a lease with the city that we did for 100 years. Very, very complex in terms of there's literally 2 buildings tied with a rooftop, but the first building has the rooms and the second building has the entertainment. So that has about 7 restaurants that are stacked on top of each other, and it ends with a nightclub in the rooftop. So that's really the Dream brand with all the whistles and bells. On the left side, you have the Dream Hotel in Frisco that we're developing with our friends in the Wilkes family. Dupree, you've worked with them, incredible family. They had an incredible vision for a transformational project for the region, for Plano and Frisco, that we can't wait to see executed. So they have mixed uses there, office, residential, whole retail sort of village built around it. So it's a much more walkable vision for what the city should be. And they're working with some of the top consultants in the world. They hired UN Studio to do the master plan. And so we think that this is going to be part of the first phase, where the hotel kind of anchors the development, becomes an amenity for all the users, tenants in the office, and residents that are going to be living there. But very excited to see those two projects coming to life. Yeah.
Thanks. VIP yacht. I need to do something with my life
So
differently.
opening 2025, late 2025, early 26 in Miami. You should get an invitation for that.
Awesome. Can't wait. So we only have a couple minutes left. Tiffany, do you want to talk about this project?
Sure. So this was a property which was hit 2 years or with two massive hurricanes, and it's been shut down for the last 6 years. The owner invested $500 million, and we just opened this property about 3 weeks ago. I have not been there yet, but I will be at the Chico's conference. See you there, Christian, in a few weeks, and I can't wait to see it. We are really excited, and this is in St. Thomas.
Thanks. And Stephen, you talked about these.
I did, and clearly we need better renders to do our projects. these are a couple third-party clients that I already mentioned. The Santa Barbara assets, 105 rooms on Lower Milpas. For anybody who's familiar with Santa Barbara, which is one of the Santa Barbara's filled with these great old historic streets and historic structures. So our client has to build something that looks like it's been there for 100 years and looks like the mission. So thank you, Santa Barbara. But will be a great project with a rooftop overlooking the Pacific Ocean and Stearns Wharf right there in Santa Barbara on kind of the East Beach side of town. Our Tribute in San Pedro, also another third-party client, but this is about 100 keys right adjacent to the Warner Theater. So think Warner Brothers Studios. So back in the day, there were 2 Warner Brothers theaters, and this was one of them. So the hope is really to reinvigorate the whole San Pedro downtown area that now will spill out into the waterfront, which is being right now completely revitalized down there. So it would be a really neat project there.
Next Alice party there, the theater.
So then at my next slide, we'll show you our Alice party.
I don't think it got added.
Did we get rid of it? It's okay. So
Sorry.
I've
That was my fault. Page 2 didn't scroll down.
That's okay. So the other is our Wayfair brand, which we started in 2014. It was really kind of a postal. It was like a posh hostel concept that was done at a time where it was this convergence of this, relationship economy meets this sharing economy, and we were really going after us and Moxie and some of these other brands. We were going after this younger traveler who was looking for experiences. So at the intersection of that, we created Wayfair. It was a 31-room hotel in Santa Barbara along State Street in less than 10,000 square feet. But we had rooms where we had bunk beds where you could be, me, Dupree, and Christian don't know each other, but by the end of our 2-day bromance stint, we all exchange cell phones and we become best friends. And we had that. We had that with guest rooms for males and females. To our knowledge, there was no gender mixing. We started in downtown LA.
There's so much in that comment.
There's a lot.
I'll leave it alone. You're in
There's
Texas.
a lot.
I'm leaving it alone. I'm just gonna leave it alone.
Sounds like a bar
Like
discussion.
a hostel, right? Like it's
It never happened. It never came up. I don't know. So then we opened downtown Los Angeles on February 14th of 2020. The asteroid hits. And who the heck wants to sleep in a room with a stranger anymore? And who wants to be, having this shared communal kitchen and this and that and the other? But we allowed COVID to allow us to take the pause and figure out who do we want to be. And so the hotel reemerges and does amazingly well. So we're no longer this kind of hostel concept. It's really all guest rooms are private guest rooms. We have 3 Wayfairs. We have the one in downtown Los Angeles. Sadly, we sold the one in Santa Barbara during COVID. It might have been bittersweet, actually, when we think about it. And we have another in San Luis Obispo and another in San Diego on the waterfront there.
That's cool.
Great.
Cool.
Well, we could keep talking all day, and I had a lot more questions. We were going to end on what our favorite hotel was, so now you're going to have to ask us at the bar what our favorite hotel is that we've stayed at in the
I'm
past
just going to
year.
give a shout out because
Yeah,
it's kind of an oldie but goodie, oldie-ish. It's one of my favorite hotels to this day is the Westin Kierland.
Oh,
And that's a Woodbine built property. It's one of the most spectacular resorts, and I happen to live 10 minutes away. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful to this. It just is so timeless.
It's a cool one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you to this amazing panel. I learned a lot. I'm sure you all did too. So thank you.
Feel good? Are you happy?